I feel the issue is important, namely how should we define marriage in this state. And I understand that a minority of the population, i.e. homosexuals, want to redefine marriage so as to include themselves and do and otherwise a definition that has excluded them since the beginning of time. Well, I thought it was a typical act of thievery from the left, ignoring the will of the people, pretending to stand on some form of principle that doesn't hold water, just to please themselves. Well, I think that's a tactic, interesting enough, is that the left use a lot. They use a lot of sloganeering, such as the phrase that you just used, instead of engaging in the actual argument itself. In other words, they're trying to say, well, if you say something against what we want to do, that's it's bullying, or you're a bigot, or you're a Neanderthal, or you're mean, or any one of a whole host of ad hominem name callings. That's basically what the left does a lot. It calls other people names that they don't agree with, rather than engaging in the substance of an argument. Now, I don't see I notice what you're not asking me is what do I think about what he's actually saying, and instead of labeling it as a bullying tactic. There are lots of people who are getting beat up. Blacks, whites, Mormons, Muslims, Jews. It's interesting that nobody from any of those communities are seeking to raise the same issue in justification of that, or self-defense that the gay community raises when it feels it's being singled out. I think the numbers for, I might be wrong about this, I was just watching the news the other night, and one of the commentators pointed out that violence against Jews far exceeds that against Muslims, for example. And yet you don't see Jews out on the streets trying to protest or assert their victimhood. I haven't seen them out protesting lately. I haven't seen them out trying to make big demonstrations, trying to drum up public sympathy for their plight. They're mature enough to accept what's happening, but they're not trying to form some political movement, unlike the gays are. They're not trying to stop public opinion in the sense of overturning initiatives twice passed by this state, and literally, as I understand it, every other state that's ever had a chance to vote on this issue, unless it's been usurped by the legislature of those states. So it seems to me that all across the board, if you want to talk about numbers, I just don't see where the gay community has the numbers to pull off the sorts of assertions that it's making, particularly if you consider, as we just briefly mentioned, what's happening in other communities. Why? I'm really curious. Why the flight to victimhood in the gay community? Is that part of the gay mindset? Not real close. In fact, I spend probably maybe less than an hour a week. Probably less than that, actually. Probably less than 20 or 30 minutes a week. Well, only in the most vague and distant sort of way, in the sense that I know that's part of the game that the courts play, is they decide what is and is not admissible in terms of a reasoned argument, which is to me it's a shame, because it's a lot more constrictive and political than say, like, for instance, a philosophical argument where nothing is excluded. Everything, if you want to make a logical philosophical argument for some particular point, everything is allowed to be put on the table. There isn't some authority who says, no, you can't talk about this, you can't talk about that, that's inadmissible, this other thing's over here is inadmissible, which basically, it ends up just stacking the deck in favor of whatever particular argument the powers that be, how they want it to turn out. And say, for instance, like I was just saying, philosophy isn't like that at all. Everything is on the table, and the outcome is judged by the merits of the argument, not by the political power of the person who has managed to get himself appointed.